Let's talk about the Giants for a second. They signed Russell Wilson. They have Jameis Winston now as well. Do you think that the Giants are still in the market for a quarterback this draft?
I think they are because both of those players that you mentioned, they are not long-term solutions. And even though Joe Shane and Brian Daboll are leading the program right now, there is such an influence in terms of ownership in that organization in a positive way that they are going to be thinking about the future. Now, I don't think that they'll sacrifice too much currency in order to jump up and get a player that they necessarily want. But I look at that program. I also think that the Mara and Tisch families are smart enough to know that having Brian Daboll on their staff as their head coach, Brian's been a part of some really important quarterback development in the course of his career. He was with us at the Patriots when we had Brady. He was there when we started to develop your boy and my boy, Matt Castle. But people forget that along with Josh Allen, when he was the offensive coordinator at the Bills, he was the Alabama offensive coordinator, back when they had Tua, back when they had Jalen Hurts. Brian Daboll is a really good coach in terms of developing quarterbacks. So I think if they have an opportunity to get the right person in at the right price without having to sacrifice too much, I could absolutely see the Giants going in on another quarterback.
On with us now, it's Bobby Bones in for Rich Eisen, five-time NFL Executive of the Year, Scott Pioli. Going back to your front office days, what are GMs and coaches doing right now with less than a month left in the draft?
This is where we used to do these things where we called stack breakers, right? Because you put your board together and you have two separate ways of looking at the board. You've got the vertical stack, which is 1 through 50, where you're ranking players against one another. And then you've got your horizontal stack, which is more by position. And I think what you're doing now is you're getting down to, brass tacks in terms of players that you may have the same grade on, that you may view the same. Let's really do a deeper dive with the coaches on that to see what the coaches have to say. Because, a lot of the teams that I worked with, our coaches didn't get involved in the draft and even start looking at players until February. So that's a short window and a small window. They're still gathering information. So you're busting stacks, you're comparing players to one another as to how you want to order them, which player, regardless of position, you think is the best player available. But I think the other thing that's really happening right now, Bobby, is you're spending a lot of time with your medical people and the information gatherers in terms of getting last minute and updated medical information, and truthfully, a lot of character and background stuff, because a lot of stuff gets hidden and you have to do some real deep diving on who the players are to make sure that they're going to fit your culture. So it's a lot of real dialing in work right now. And the other thing that you're doing is that you're spending time finding out what other teams are doing or trying to figure out what teams are doing. Because there's this whole process. I always talked about how there's the evaluation process, and then there's the strategic process of the draft. And it's this last month where strategy really becomes an important thing in terms of getting, or hopefully getting, the player that you want to get.
And that leads me to my next question. Barring some crazy legal issue or something wildly unforeseen, is there really anything that can happen now that happens between today and the draft that would make you change your mind on a player or their position on the board?
I think that there's not that much significant swing, Bobby, because I think if you have something that changes so dramatically at this point in time, then you weren't doing your job the right way the last 11 months. But I think the things that make impact now are the wild things, right? You talk about whether it's a medical situation that comes up last minute, or if it's a character issue, an arrest. You can never discount those things because they certainly pop up.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.